All right, welcome to Gaming with the Guys, Bungles After Dark. This is our attempt at making a podcast where we're going to talk about Bushido, other games, life in general, cons that we've been to, things that we've been doing. Speaking of cons, we're just back from Adepticon. I was hosting the Grand Masters tournament, and I am happy to have in attendance with me tonight for our very first episode of Bungles After Dark. We have Gaming Jason, who came in second place at the tourney, and Grandmaster, obviously, Cody, who came in first. Both regulars to the channel and are here with us tonight. Gentlemen, thanks for coming. I'm glad you're here so we could all talk about our Adepticon experience. And congratulations, Cody and Jason, on your placings. It was, that's quite the achievement.
Thank you, and thank you for hosting.
Yeah,
for real. Thanks for taking care of this one, because we've been talking about this all the time on the channel. It's like, all right, we're gonna do this or not. So
we've been talking about doing that, and the hosting of the event at the con. That was yeah. We'll start with that. We'll start right there. Adepticon.
we'll start with Discord, and everybody.
No. Don't worry about that. That's neither here nor there. So it was a challenge, but luckily I had fantastic support. GCT was great in their support for me. Brian, who you've seen on the channel before, without him, it would not be possible. I've said it on Discord. I've said it on Facebook. He did all of my data crunching, and he did a fantastic job with it. And then Art and the guys from Bushido Badgers bringing down 8 boards and lots of terrain, made everything look good. Carl out Ottawa way. I know he'll be mad because he's on the other side of the river, but I can't pronounce the name of that city, so we'll just say Ottawa. The English speaking side of that, he's in Quebec. But he brought down another gorgeous board. And Hoagie did give us 3 boards. He's one of our local gamers. They looked great. Unfortunately, we weren't able to use them because they just did not quite, for a Masters tournament. I wanted to play with them so badly. They look absolutely fabulous.
Same. They were really nice boards. Even Jason, from GCT, is like, these are gorgeous. And I was like, yes, they are.
They are.
Just unfortunate we couldn't use them because they were in the wrong places.
Right. The terrain had elevations. They had some scenery built into them, and it just would not allow us to put objectives out. Even if we just used it maybe for one particular one, like if we did idols across the middle, it just wouldn't fit, just because of the different things. And then the other boards had a beautiful, like, raised platform that was to be for a temple, and it just wasn't big enough to put 3 idols across the middle or a ring of idols. So these are things that we learn. We've used them in videos that we've done from the channel, but I remember specifically when I was talking about them, it's like, I'm never going to let good terrain get in the way of a game. I'll make exceptions for it, but those are casual games. This was the Grand Masters, and aside from logistically, the cost to me was obviously just like everybody else, got the Rona. So if you hear me coughing or snorting or something like that, that's me on the recovery road from that. Luckily, it seems Jason and Cody did not get it. So, gentlemen, I'll open it up with you guys. So this is not your first Grand Masters, because you guys were back in 2019.
I wasn't.
No, Jason wasn't.
Yeah, I had family stuff I had other family stuff I was doing. So right. I got to observe everybody and see how everybody stressed out over Grandmasters in 2019.
Right. I participated in Grandmasters in 2019. But that was a whole different edition. So this was the first Grandmasters in North America at Adepticon using the Risen Sun rule set. And so we'll open the floor up to Cody to start. Just before we get into the lists and how you did and matchups and stuff like that, what was your overall thought going into this? How were you feeling about
it? Worried. I had a special t-shirt made with a bonsai tree to kind of lock myself into Temple.
Yes.
I still proceeded to bring Temple, Prefecture, Minimoto, and I think an Imperial Sister list with me in my bag. So I really wasn't sure. I play tested quite a bit, and then finally just decided to go with my Temple list, which a couple of the figures I just added in because they look cool, and when we go over the list, I'll point them out.
Okay. So yeah, we'll get into that. We'll try to go briefly over that because I really kind of want to get into your overall experience. Jason, since this was your first Grandmasters, how was it for you going into it?
I mean, it was pretty good. I enjoyed myself. Definitely a lot of tough games. I will
Hmm.
say this is probably the first tournament where I actually tested a list and played it out versus most tournaments where I'm just like, all right, let's go to the tournament. What am I going to do? Oh, this looks all cool together. And then I just throw a bunch of stuff together and actually do pretty well for most of the tournaments. So getting some of that testing figured out was doing some of that testing was at least good practice for me just to make sure I understood the different caveats of my army to make sure I knew what I was actually doing this time.
Yes, that's it. If the one thing we remember from all different tournaments and from the unseen member of the Gaming with the Guys gaming, Josh has always said, "Know your lists." You know, he would always write
Yeah.
his stuff on his arms and whatnot. That's I think my biggest fear. I mean, aside from the fact that I'm running the tournament, but when you guys playing, I'm like, boy, I really Cody, especially because you change lists so often. It's like, is he going to remember everything for his list now? That
No.
He's going to remember all the abilities for his cards. He's going to remember his list. Is he going to remember that this does this? And with Bushido, there's so much to remember. It could be kind of rough. So
Oh yeah.
for all apparent purposes, it looked like you did okay. At least you remembered the key stuff there, Cody.
Yeah, there was a couple things that luckily I remembered, like with the monkeys preventing surprised and stuff like that, because that would have been pretty detrimental in a couple of the games. And
Mhm.
um, I forgot a couple things, and I took some notes, so I'll go over that when we get to those games.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Um, yeah. Now I will say, and we might talk about this depending on how time goes towards the end. The one thing I will say for the two of you, and to kind of give you all a general idea of the mix and makeup of this. So for this Grandmasters tournament at Adepticon, we had we had two Grandmasters playing. Um, it's no surprise. I have not asked for permission to use people's names, but it wouldn't be a big surprise to name drop Jason Enos. Jason Enos was there. We also had the 2019 Grand Champion there. And then we had a lot of other players. Andy Palmer was supposed to play, but was unfortunately at work. He had to work the booth.
He got the short straw.
He got the short
Store
straw.
duty.
He got store duty because apparently our tournament and everything else made GCT's sales just at Adepticon go off the charts. Because I remember coming in on Thursday to their booth, looking at their stock, and they had a lot of starters. They had the new the new Void or the Kinshu Temple, the new 2-player starter. And that was Thursday morning, they had tons of stuff. They had a decent amount of blisters, but by the time we came in on Friday, it was when the tournament started on Friday. I think they opened the booth at 10 o'clock. By 11 o'clock or 11:30, they were out of the new Void
Yeah.
faction starter, and they were out of the 2-player starter by noon or something like that. So,
And by Sunday, like we just went just to
Sunday
see
there
what
was.
was there is like picked over
I
like
think they had a Silver Moon starter
no, they had
and
some
Two,
Silver Moon dice. I don't
oh,
think they
they
had a
had,
Silver Moon starter. They had some Silver Moon dice. I think a couple temple or not temple
they had two Bakemono
Tengu.
starters.
Oh, and like
that's what
some
it
and some
was.
Tengu dice, and then a random assortment of blisters that were
Yeah,
still saved over. So they probably were not too upset about that because they could probably just throw that all into one check
yeah.
bag when they went back to the UK.
Pretty much, yeah. They just had the one check bag for it. So we had some high level competitive players there. I would say from our local meta, we had a few that were there. We had a bunch of people from out of town, but we also had a lot of. I don't want to say novices, but they were probably either people just coming back into the game that were more for second edition players than third edition. Um, so we had a good cross mix of players. I don't want to say anyone was a novice gamer. Were they experienced in Bushido? Probably not. Um, or at least not as experienced in this particular edition of it, Bushido. Um, so there was some coaching of rules because things have changed between editions, but I don't think either of you guys had to coach anybody on particularly, how everything played.
No, not like on how to play. I know like there were rules question. I know my first
Rules
match,
questions, yeah.
my opponent knew all of his stuff, but the person next to me, who ended up being my last round opponent, he was brushing off the dust a little bit, and he's like, "Oh,
Mhm.
thank God that I have someone here that's pretty good with the rules." I'm like, I know about 90% of it, and then the last 10%, that's when I just told him to call you and
Call
Brian over.
judge. Call
Yeah.
judge.
Yeah,
How
that
about
was
you?
even one of them.
How about you, Cody? Your opponents were pretty not well. We'll get into it, but I know at least one of your opponents was very knowledgeable of the rules.
Yeah, one of my opponents is very knowledgeable. My first round opponent was pretty knowledgeable. He was just getting back into it this
Mhm,
edition.
mhm.
Really, the only thing that he needed coaching on was that the dice mechanic. If you roll 3 6s, it's 6, 7, 8, not
Right.
Not the
Not
6,
the
extra
8,
older
10.
version.
sixes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You don't add the extra
So,
sixes in. Yeah.
and thank God that was the case, because that's all that guy was rolling was 6s.
Then he missed the old mechanic. That's for sure.
Yeah.
He should have played Silver Moon because we have an enhancement card that brings that back. Only one race.
One
Only had one
race.
model though.
Only one. That you just make sure that model counts. That's for darn sure.
Oh yeah.
So one of the things that's been coming up in a lot of the discussions that I've been seeing lately is this affecting the gameplay and so on and so forth. I'll be honest. While there were some beginner players, I'd say after the first round, um,
People knew their stuff
people
after
knew
the
their
first
stuff.
round. If they
Again,
even
they
the
were
people who hadn't played in a long time.
yeah, they shook the cobwebs off. People who are in the old edition were probably coming to grips with it. And it's not like they all came in not playing at all. Um, just probably not as much as you two. Because I could vouch for Jason. You've seen the channel.
We have a
40,
YouTube repertoire.
45 episodes of Bushido play. Maybe Jason's not in all of them, but he sure is in a lot of them, and he's pretty much playing Silver Moon in a majority of them. So
Basically every single one.
he's got some ninja ones in there.
I got a
Oh,
couple,
true.
and I got like 1 or 2 Shiho. I think when I was just like, I want to
Oh
try
yeah,
this.
yeah. I got the Shio. Cody, you're kind of all over the place, but and again, we'll probably talk afterwards about it. But I have a feeling actually you playing a bunch of the different factions really kind of, long and the short of it, helped you because you knew what you were playing with your temple, but the experience of playing all those other factions at some point in time definitely pays off. It helps because you know what to expect.
Absolutely. It definitely came into play throughout my games, and I got lucky enough to get paired up against 2 temple players. So very
That's
familiar
right.
with all of their models because I play those models, and temple is one of the factions that I've basically played from the get-go because that's the faction that Josh started with, and
Mhm.
I paint all of his figures. So of course I played them, so I didn't have to buy them right away.
Yeah, that does
Yeah.
make a difference. Yeah, like I said, I think that was a huge advantage knowing your list and then knowing what everybody else listed. And again, it was again Temple had a very strong showing at this particular event. Um, so it was going to be very hard to avoid a Temple list, especially as you got to the higher tables. Um, just like so that brings me to one of our first questions before we kind of go in depth on Grand Master Cody's grand strategy or whatever we want to call that. So I'll open it up first.
His owning. That's what
His
I'm referring
owning,
to.
no.
His
It,
owning.
it was it was not an owning, but it was
Yeah.
it was quite the challenge, and
Oh yeah.
he came out on top, which is that's kind of the thing. So first thing, I'll open up to Cody, and then I'll ask the same question to you, Jason. What was your biggest surprise, Cody? Well, give me 2 things that surprised you the most about the Grandmasters. Whether it's factions that were there, players, strategies,
Uh,
dice. Who knows?
really one of the I guess the biggest thing that surprised me was no Ito. That was a huge shocker.
Yeah.
And I guess the other thing would just be the fact that there are so many temple players. I really wasn't expecting that many, and then to have the luxury of getting paired up against 2 of them. Because I think, what was there, 4? And I was playing one of them, so
Yeah, I don't have the Excel open right now, but yeah, I believe there were. I know there were the big faction that was there. There were 5 Savage Wave, and then I think there at least 3 Temple.
Let me take a look here.
There-
So, oh no, there were 4 Temple. I forgot
There was
because
definitely
Mark.
4.
Yeah. Our local, one of our locals was that. So yeah, there were 4 Temple, 5 Savage, and then the other breakdown starts to get a little more. I know at least 2 Prefecture.
There's a couple Tengu too, which kind of
Tengu.
I was
Yes.
surprised that I figured there'd be 1.
there
Wasn't
are 2
expecting more than that,
There
really.
are 2 Tengu. I got the
Oh,
Excel sheet
Jason's
on
got
my
the
end.
Excel. So yeah, Jason, if you could give us a quick breakdown of factions, that would be
Let's
great.
see, we've got one. Make sure that I understand. So we got 2 Tengu that was there. 1 KKZ, 1 Shiho. Let's see, 1. Surprisingly, only 1 Minimoto.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised by that too.
Yeah.
And 2 Cult of Uri. That's another surprising one for me. And 2 Prefectures. 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like
Yeah.
4 Savage Wave.
No, there should be 5.
Oh, there we go. 5. 1 June, 3 Silver Moon, and then everything else should be Temple.
1 June.
1
Jung.
Oh,
Jung,
Jung.
sorry.
I
One
knew
Jung.
what Jason meant.
It's because you're fluent in Jasonese. I'm his father. I still haven't. I can't interpret it.
It's okay.
Exactly.
So yeah, 1 Jung, and then let me see if I can find Temple.
Temple should be 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the most represented faction was Savage Wave, which I'm gonna preempt Jason. That one shocked me, but I'll say Cody, you're correct. It was the fact that there was no Ito at all.
Yeah, not even a
That
single
threw me.
one.
Yeah. And then follow that up with 5 Savage Wave, and more importantly, of the Savage Wave, it was
All Oni.
All
Or I think
Yeah.
was one of them Bakemono. I don't know.
I think they were all
but-
Oni. Not all of them were alphas, though. There was a couple like mixture.
There was I know there were definitely 3 alphas at least, if not 4, and then there was 1 red red
Yeah,
something.
the Wrath of the Red Sun. or
Yes.
something,
Yeah.
Yes, that was the other one there. And again, they weren't in, from what I can remember of the alphas, they were not like the alphas that Art was running. So if you really want to think of it, we had 6 Savage Waves because we only had 23 players. And then we had Art Wagner from Gitsapalooza. He was our even though he was helping me with flipping tables and whatnot. I wanted to get Art back in the game and get him a lot of games, so I made him our designated ringer. And Art was running his version of alphas, which has a lot of the dogs in it.
Yep.
So everybody, when they got their buy points, but then they got to play Art, and so Art got a lot of games in.
Oh yeah.
Heck,
He
I
really
even got a
appreciated
game
it.
in. I got a demo game in. I sold somebody on the game on it.
I know I think I sold at least 1 or 2 people on the game or helped clarify their buying decision.
Well, and I know Art set up all of his Bakemono on one of Hoagie's table, and that really drew a lot of attention since it was kind of over by where, like
People
the
were
top
walking by.
table and stuff was. Well, I mean, top table moved around, but a lot of people were coming over to watch because there was a couple people playing over there, and so that really drew a lot of interest. And that was game 3 that I played over there, and there was always like 6 or 7 people standing looking at the Bakemono and watching us.
Yeah, we set that up. We kind of, and I wanted to put more terrain out, but I'll be honest, I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off, flipping tables and trying to answer questions, and then also trying to help people who had questions on where to go with the game and what the game was about. I wanted to kind of use Hoagie's boards as a demonstration to kind of create some pizzazz about it. Art did a great job putting stuff out on the boards, and yes, it did attract a lot of attention. We had them towards the main aisle where people were walking. So no Ito. And I may have stole your thunder by saying a lot of Savage Wave, and then you said Temple. So Jason, what were your 2 big surprises, takeaways from it?
So just to jump on the Savage Wave bandwagon, that you can get an Oni with 4 or basically key 4 is like, I did not expect that, and that showed up twice, and just I thought that I had like semi good with control or cult and everything was. Yeah, no, those Onis put me to shame right
Oh,
there.
that's the Kemono and Ushi combo. That's the
Yeah,
two-headed guy.
the two-headed guy. You can give them an enhancement to give them effectively 4 dice that they throw, and they still have Spirit 1, or they have something else that gives them an automatic +1.
Got it.
So
Yeah.
that was pretty rough coming up against that twice in the same day. I was hoping that was once, and it ended up coming up against it, so it wasn't as bad at the end because it was at the beginning and the end of the day. So at least it had kind of had its waha moment.
Yeah.
Um,
So
and
that was
then
one. It's the Savage
yeah,
Wave. What else?
um, I guess I'd have to really say I mean, along with the Savage Wave, I mean, Savage Wave is kind of what I'm really caught on because that was my big thing was is that it was all Onis on the Savage Wave. That there wasn't even someone that would be more Bakemono, especially since like within the boards and a lot of people just talking in general, like on Discord, that you don't see the Onis getting a lot of like respect or attention. Or it's like, yeah, the Onis are you have the big Onis, but they're kind of like I don't want to say a one trick pony, but they are to an extent, and it just they're not they sometimes may struggle in a tournaments format setting. So I'm glad to see that that maybe wasn't the case, because
Mhm.
even if Ito was into this or was more present trying to maybe bring it back a little bit, they can only put out so many arrows, and if you're wanting to actually use your poison, that means you got to play Lords of Ito, and then that
Yeah.
comes with its own some of its own drawbacks
Well,
in
like it mattered.
exchange.
There was no Ito there, so who cares about poison?
Well, I mean, there's that, and actually, the other thing that I was surprised with, and I think this is just more of us talking more than anything, like we do on the channel, the lack of range list. I really thought that this was going to be the marquee statement of here is range in
Yeah.
Bushido, and this is why you don't play anything larger than a medium base, or at least why me personally, like I stay away from it because it's just too much of a liability. So that was a good surprise that that wasn't super present, but it was also a little bit shocking on our end. But
Mhm.
again, I don't know if that's more of local meta versus kind of what people talk about on the boards.
I think it's a little bit on the local meta. I mean, when I look at what we play locally with Ito, I mean, I'm not range heavy in my list. I usually have Kahimi in there. I usually have at least one range element in there. Um, if that's playing the range game, then that's playing the range game. But yeah, I will say, having seen that, I don't even think the Shiho list had a whole lot of range in them.
If I remember right, the She-Hulk player was more of they had more of the Ronin stuff because I think they were playing Blood Brothers, and then they just fell into She-Hulk because they
Oh,
had Black Eagle and an
eldest
Eldest
brother.
Brother with some other She-Hulk cards. But otherwise, they were playing Blood Brothers, just like one of the Silver Moon players was effectively playing Imperial Princesses, but took Silver Moon for the faction
Faction.
cards.
Yeah, they're playing Ronin. Now, the one thing now for me, for my surprises, and you guys have kind of said a couple of them already, and I've already kind of stated one as it is. No Ito, that was definitely one. The large showing of Savage Wave, and not just Savage Wave in the number of players playing it. 5 out of the 23 players were playing a Savage Wave list, but it was that there was no, it wasn't a mix of some Bakemono, some Oni. No, they were all Oni lists. They were big honking Onis. Although talking with a few people, they kind of wanted to go that route because of the time constraint. So playing a Horde Bakemono list
Oh,
didn't necessarily appeal to them because one, there's a lot of moving parts you got to keep track of. So it was, the mantra, which I should probably say every time I go to a tournament, is keep it simple, stupid. And just have 4 or 5 models, 6 models that and can really either beat face or get you the control or whatnot. And it seems like, at least from what you were saying, Jason, 2 of them having Kimono Ushi, um, which is doing the control, and then a couple other beaters on there, and then some slaves to take the Oni slaves to take some hits, is the way everybody was kind of going. So keeping it simple, but definitely a hard combo to do. The range, the lack of range took me by surprise a bit. I think there was only one that had a lot of range in it and played with range shenanigans, and that was the Minimoto list. Um, I thought that would play a bigger deal, and I'm wondering if there was a more range dominant thing list out there or two, if we would have seen more, if the Savage Wave lists would have suffered more. I don't know. I don't know, but it definitely is something that those medium bases would have to take into account.
Well, they're large bases on a lot of those
Are there
lobies
large
too,
bases?
especially
Yeah.
if they're playing
Oh,
Outlaws. They're
yeah.
all large bases because I know I got to capitalize on having large or shooting into combat with large bases. I was like,
Yes.
this is. I feel dirty for doing this, but I mean, it's how it's designed.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, we had one ninja list. That was what we had in
Yeah,
there too.
there was one ninja.
Actually, me going off track already. So there was a lot of surprises that we had there, and again, it's I think a lot of it has to do when you're playing in a certain meta as often as we do, we kind of have some preconceptions. We read the boards and we see people talking about things and whatnot, but we really don't know what other people are playing in their metas and they're comfortable with and the how-tos and whys. Like I said, the Savage Wave one, everybody raves about playing Bakemono and they think that's a fun list. I don't disagree with them that it's a fun list. It also sounds like it could possibly be a very competitive list. But with a lot of moving parts and with players, again, I'm not going to say that they were novices, but they were not as experienced with those lists because of the state of the world we're in. They're not as able to get as much games in. It may be that they really haven't played many games between second edition and third edition, even though that's a 2-year layoff. So again, they keep it simple, keep it simple, stupid is the mantra you go with. So that's why we saw what we did. I was surprised to see some Shio lists, but as Jason pointed out, the Shiho they were playing was more of a Ronin list that just had a Shiho placeholder on it more than anything else.
Yeah.
I mean, at least they did include Black Eagle, so I mean, it wasn't your typical Ronin
I
list.
swore there was somebody else. Somebody else had Drunken Master too.
I don't know if someone had Drunken Master.
Drunken Master was in a Tengu list, I believe.
Okay, that's what it was.
Yeah, and the Shiho list, the Blood Brothers one, he was playing Ordered for Battle, and he had 3 Shiho samurai that he was able to swap in and out.
Now that's something else, Jace. On the XL, do you know if you could see the themes in there? That's probably my big. So that's my final surprise for Adepticon is I really thought there was going to be a lot more. Oh, I thought we had it on. We did have it on there. It's probably just somewhere weird.
I'm taking a look here right now. I don't see it. I just see the factions. I don't see.
I have them here,
I don't see anything like that. I mean, I know when you did your whole breakdown on Discord that like you put like what the themes were.
I put them there, so yeah, you'll be able to see the themes on there. I'm kind of looking at the papers right now. Looking at it, I've seen there's 1, 2, and this is going to be me doing 3, 4. That's not Ordered for Battle, is it? Where's the theme? No, that's Imperial March. 4. See, this is the fun part of you watching. This is me not being ready for this.
This is Bungles in the Dark
ASMR This is why we're calling it Bungles in the Dark, because I'm in the dark and I'm trying to look at it. There, we even have one that did not even have a theme. Prefecture.
There you go.
That was a decapitation list. That was a decapitation list, which was loads of fun from what I've heard.
I know there's at least 5 because just our meta brought 3, and then the Shiho list.
Oh, that's the skirmish. Yeah. Oh,
or maybe 4.
No, there's 5. So there were out of the 23, there were 5 Ordered for Battle. I thought there would be one, and I forget, and I'll apologize, I can't remember the name of the one. Where you could take a whole second list.
Oh, strategic deployment.
Yeah, nobody took strategic deployment. And by the way, thank you, players, for not taking strategic deployment. Because I'll tell you, putting all those lists on the Discord and on the typing them all up to get them on there once was about an hour and 20-minute process for me to do. And checking all those lists in next year, if I'm running it, we have a little more of a streamlined process. We're gonna get those lists ahead of time to make our life easier. But that was the one thing I kind of thought, I'll be honest, I thought there would be more Ordered for Battle.
I could see that, I guess.
I really thought there would be more Ordered for Battle. I was pleasantly surprised there wasn't. But I thought there would be more. And that just kind of shows that different things can happen. So yeah, those were kind of the major surprises. You know, I was pleasant, and all of them were not bad surprises. It's just, again, I think we kind of get locked in what our local meta thought is, me and Jason kind of get locked into less of, what's going to be playing great in a tournament and more what looks good on YouTube for the channel. What's an interesting matchup? What haven't people seen? And so we want to have different things up there rather than worrying about what's the most competitive build and what's the most competitive theme, which we may talk about at some point in time. That's what Bungles After Dark is all about. So all that kind of going, I think it was a successful tournament, minus a large number of people getting coronavirus.
The Adepticon special.
The Adepticon special, yes.
The one that they didn't tell you about in the material. That's what you really got in the VIG bag.
Yeah, the VIG bag is you got immunity to it. No, I don't know who got. I know I didn't get a VIG bag, and I got it. So I also think I compromised myself by running the tournament because I was screaming like an idiot. But I will say I was much better heard by our entire group, and we had a long table than all those 40K players, and they had to have a PA system to use it. So power to me. I was hoarse for 3 days afterwards, but and the lack of sleep. So successful tournament. Everybody seemed to enjoy themselves. I will say what I was really last surprise, I was pleasantly surprised that normally at a tournament like this, when you're out of the running, you've lost your first two, or maybe you didn't get 3-0 victories by round 2, and you're like, well, screw it, I can't get it, because everybody else is getting it. No one left from the start. No one dropped from round 1 to round 4, when we started doing the prizes, we had 23 players. All 23 players stayed. So credit to them. And then I loved going down the tables. I'd pop by the high end tables just because you want to be there in case they have a question or something, check and see what's going on, so on and so forth. But those bottom level tables, or mid-tier level tables, the mid-tiers always kind of think they have that outside chance in the Bushido format of scoring that they could snake something, because those top tables, if you don't get the maximum points and then somebody all of a sudden gets a maximum point on a table or two under you, that's a dramatic swing. 9 points, a 9-point, a 3-0 victory versus a 3-0 loss, that's an 18-point swing. 9 points at least, and that's huge. So everybody kind of stuck in, and the nice thing to say is everybody was enjoying themselves. Everybody was learning. So the more games they got in, the more they learned things, the more they got to see factions they probably didn't see that much of, whether it's because they're local meta or just because they don't play a lot. So that's the pleasant surprise I took away, is everybody stuck it out. Because again, it was a long day. I mean, we started at 8. We got underway a little later than I wanted to. We were hoping to start at 8:30. We started at 9, and we went until after 6:30. I think 6:30 is when the last round ended, which was a half hour later than what it was supposed to. So everybody staying was fantastic. So if you were there at Adepticon and stuck it out, thank you so much, and I'm glad you enjoyed yourself. That shows that it was a good time for all. Also, having free sake helped.
That was more towards the end. I noticed, like, nobody took part in it.
Everybody was very serious rounds 1 or 2, but round 3 is like,
we didn't bust open the thing until the end of the tournament. I'm not gonna lie.
No, round 3 is when it started.
Oh, really?
When it started, yeah. We tapped that cask. Okay, yeah, I could say that. That's not bad.
Does it help if we do a "That's what she said" joke, and then that makes it feel
will be
better?
fine. Yeah, that just feel free to jump in with "That's what she said." So those are the surprises that we had. All of them were pretty good surprises, and I think again it was more of just local stuff and us just not being used to it. So more importantly, what was probably the best surprise of them all was Cody, you came in first,
and got another samurai sword for his collection.
Sword.
Yeah, apparently he's going to decorate his house in samurai swords that he takes as trophies at these different tournaments that I run. So I'm thinking I'm gonna have to change my prizes. I'll go back to drinking horns like I did for Arena Rex.
Replace all the bricks in his house with a samurai sword. Samurai swords and bricks. That's all. Or samurai swords and drinking horns. That's all.
Samurai swords and drinking horns. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna samurai sword with a little sippy cup top on it for the next generation of gamers there. So there you go. See, was that from Arena Rex, or was that from a different Bushido?
The
No,
drinking
I
horns?
bought that one.
Oh, you bought that one. Then you need to win one, obviously.
I
Why buy
know.
it when I could win it? So, so I guess the big question is, Cody, with you winning the tournament, um, what was your kind of your list? And I'm going to share screen here really quick. Your theme. Why did you pick the theme that you picked?
So originally in playtesting, I was messing with Righteous Warriors, and basically it wasn't until maybe 4 days before the con when I was like, I'm doing Order for Battle. And the reason for that was because I wanted to put the Kawa no Rojin in the list to help him buff up Taiki with Ayoko, or however you say her name, the little girl.
Okay.
And the bull, you can't take that in a list with monks. So really, I guess I didn't really even need to run the theme. The theme was fun. I also used it so I could swap out Kosuke and Suchiro.
I was going to say, did you do that? Did you make that swap?
Yeah. At any of the idle missions, I kept Kosuke in, and then any of the zone control missions, I swapped them out for Suchiro.
Okay.
And then, like, swapping terrain and stuff out. I did it twice, in my first game and in my third game. The first game I swapped out Moment of Enlightenment for the Sun Goddess Shrine. Because I was playing against the Jung player and he had Ryujin and a Water Kami, so I wanted to plop it in between two idols so he couldn't go over there.
That was a pro gamer move right there when Cody told me. It's like, oh yeah, the Ryujin can't go by the Sun Goddess Shrine. I'm like, oh wait, for real? And he's like, yeah, read it again. I'm like, oh damn, that's disgusting.
Yeah, it helped me because it loaded all of his stuff to one side of the board, and
I can just stop Ryujin.
Control the board at that point. And then game 3, I was playing against an Oni player, so I think I swapped the rope traps out because they're really not effective against the Oni, and I added a rice bale barricade, and I don't remember what else. It was kind of dumb. I should have kept the rope traps to keep the slaves on the back line.
Okay.
So that was kind of a misplay on my part, but it ended up working out.
Okay. So Order for Battle theme. So it gave you flexibility to be able to deal with whatever was thrown at you. Be able to, so lack of a better way of explaining it, micromanage. Micromanage is a bad word for it. Be able to cope with different things. So, like you said, you were able to switch out a figure so that way you could handle zones better than idols. Particular matchups, you could switch different pieces of terrain pieces or events or enhancements or whatnot, so that way you could better deal with the challenges that a particular list would be thrown at you. Which that's why I thought I would see more of them. To be honest, it does give that flexibility. I know there's a huge raging debate about it on the boards. Briefly on my end of it, I'll just say this: they have the theme for a reason. If you want to have that flexibility to have a 30 rice sideboard to be able to play with it, take the theme. Then you don't get the bonuses of playing a theme, but having a baked in, bring 130 points and then at every round build 100-point list from a judge, logistically that's a nightmare, because then I've got to vet every list every round, because just because you have 130 points to go into a 100-point list doesn't mean that everything that you're going to put into that 100, your extra 30 points, if you want to say, is going to be able to go with the cards that you have, just because the different connections and so on and so forth. It should, but that's not always the case. So from a vetting standpoint, it's not a great thing. that's just my 2 cents on it.
I totally agree. I think that it's a bit extreme. I mean, if you wanted to do a specific tournament format that way, you could, but no, that's way too much. And
Well,
I feel like it favors some factions a little bit more than others on some of the versatility that they do and just how deep some of the factions are. Where it's like,
I think
Ryu would be
that's
perfectly fine with being able to be like, oh yeah, I can take 200-point lists or swap it out with whatever.
or
with the
no,
sideboard.
have a 30-point sideboard. So
Yeah,
you're doing
baked
100.
into
So
it.
basically, you're making 130. You're taking 130 points, but you're only playing 100 rice every match. So that way you can mix and match. Essentially, what Order to Battle does.
Yeah, but have it baked in.
But it's already baked in, so you could already play a theme with it. So, but I think that's a discussion that we're probably going to have later where we talk about tournaments and things like that. So your list. I'm going to start throwing up some stuff. If that way you could see with the shared screens. This is going to look really messy here. Yeah, it already looks messy because I can't.
For our podcast listeners, you'll just hear a lot of clicking or the sweet, soothing sounds of my voice because I'm still working on how to adjust EQ correctly. Let us know if it's working.
You were Temple. By the way, I spent all last night putting Temple, every Temple card into my database. That was fun.
Luckily, you've got the extra hard drive, so it's all good. Or do we need to talk about throwing in another hard drive onto your rig?
No, not yet, but we're getting there. All right, so that looks big enough. Here, we'll make it bigger. All right, so that was your first. So I'm going to go. Woo! I got to get a horn sound effect. Yeah, exactly.
Soundboard.
All I have is soothing music I could play in the background, but I don't want to do that right
even
now.
Better.
No, it's not better. I have an applause sound thing, but they don't have you put sound in here. So when I edit this to go onto YouTube, I'll have it. For the podcast, you won't have it, but I might have sound effects eventually in the YouTube version of it. So I'm just going to go through your list by highest to lowest point. So the first model you got, of course, is the Soshi Ape Kosuke. What was he there for?
Because he's 21 rice, so it was an easy swap for math to swap in Suchiro.
You know what? Let's kind of taking a look at him. He's a beater. He moves quick, which not all Temple models move 5. I think most of them move 4.
Yeah, most are 4. The other thing he was in the list for was the fact that he is light-footed.
Good call.
Just looking at the tables, there was, a lot of difficult terrain, and I think not all of my stuff had light-footed, or cloud walk. So I just needed someone that could kind of have a little bit more maneuverability, and he's also in there because of his special where he can, do sweep attack and sweep defense, trying to prone models. It never worked.
It usually doesn't. You also have combo attack, which is helpful when you're dealing with constructs or anything that has durable, if you're dealing with skeletons.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie, it has my favorite, and I'm kind of got my cursor on that. It has my favorite ability baked right in, Feint 1.
Yeah, that I forgot to use a lot.
Oh, dude.
That's like killer right there. Without Feint, he'd easily be like an 18-point model.
Yeah,
that's why he gets those extra 3 points is because of Feint 1.
Baked in Feint is huge. Just huge.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
that. Well, and my dice with him were not great throughout. Well, I only played him 2 out of the 4 games. He didn't do a whole lot, but really, like I said, I slotted him in. He was 21 rice. It was an easy math swap, so I didn't have to worry about cheating or messing anything up like that. And then I also really just liked the model, and I had painted him up Thursday morning when I woke up at 5 in the morning, so I wanted to play him.
God, I don't blame you. All right, so he's a good all around beater and fulfilled, and he was the guy you put in for idol swapping, right? When you need to do idol flips, he was your zone control guy.
So I played him in game 1 and game 4 because game 1 was idol's VIM mission, which he was not my VIM because I knew he was going to die. And then game 4 was I can't remember the name of the
depletion. I think. Yeah, depletion was game 4.
with the 6 idols, and the board I was playing on had a ton of difficult terrain. So really came in handy there. He was able to maneuver around and
be able to do stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So next up, clocking in at a mighty 17 points, is the monk Riku. Kata, parry 1, so good defensive model.
He's got tsunami.
He's
That's
got tsunami.
huge.
He's also got he's got 4 in melee, so he's a decent beater himself. So what was he in there for?
So when I play Bushido, I typically play 2 aggressive. So I took a model with 4 melee dice, and he had counter-strike defense. So I basically rolled defense with him all tournament.
So basically doing 3 dice and all in defense?
Yeah, there was a couple times where I'd do like 2 and 2 and kind of play the bluffing game. But I would say probably 70% of the time he was doing counter-strike defense. I did put up Wall of Water a lot, which is a 3-inch aura that you have to make I think it's a size test to enter the aura. So I was like protecting idols with him using that. And I think I only used Tsunami once throughout all of the tournaments.
Okay. Now, would you say his strength would be more, was he good all around, or was there a particular idols, ring, or zones was he a benefit for?
He's good all around, solid fighter, pretty tough, having that built-in parry, and kata. Can't go wrong with kata.
And then counter-strike defense. That with counter-strike defense, having parry 1 is kind of huge. Yeah. And kata quite simply is just filthy.
Yeah, he was actually my VIM in game 1.
Okay. That would make sense because he's good. That's going to be a real pain in the ass to kill him.
Well, yeah, with the counter-strike, but also having the push attack, push defense at 0, and then he could tsunami people away if he needed. And then, I had built-in stuff to give my guys more ki, so he could boost his movement, which he did in the last turn. He boosted his movement to like 6 and sprinted to the board edge.
That works. That's real smart. All right. So next up is, make sure I get the right one.
Yuki.
Yeah, there's Yuki and Yumi, but you spelled it wrong. It's 2 U's.
Yeah, whatever.
Oops, there we go. So 16 points, the monk Yuki. Wind type, 4 dice in attack again. Kata, bravery, light-footed, vitality. My favorite ability.
Counter-strike defense 1. I'm seeing a theme in all these things. Cody's forcibly playing defensive by taking every monk model that has counter-strike defense.
Oh, but this only has vitality on the turn. Oh, that's very nice. Okay.
So it's not broken Master Cody vitality.
Yeah, right. Well, you're doing infinity dump all my activations into one Master Akari and hope to God he could do what he needs to do. So Cody, what was Yuki there for?
Like Jason pointed out, counter-strike defense. So
forcing yourself to play defensively the whole game.
Basically, I never turtled because I hate that. It's the most boring game to play. It's a negative play experience, but it was more of just that bluffing game to try and get my opponents to start throwing more dice and attack, worrying that, I'm going to use counter-strike defense and then be able to just flip it on them and throw 3 in attack, 1 in defense with the initiative and just really blow people away.
Okay.
Literally.
Okay.
Yeah. And the other thing with her too is her special ability, getting a free 1-inch place in the starting phase, and then vitality and some of the other shenanigans in the list. She can turn an idol on turn 1.
Okay. And that's kind of huge. That's that when you're able to do something like that on an idle mission, that allows you to dictate the rest of them. You're dictating what goes on, and you're putting the pressure on your opponent then to respond in kind, either to neutralize or flip something they may not want to flip, which we'll get into when we talk about Cody's actual matches here.
Yeah, the gameplay. I'm trying to hold off on
that's right. I know
spoilers away.
We'll go through this a little quicker then. All right, so that was Yuki. Then next up is everybody's favorite oxen,
Rojan.
Rojan. Where is he?
With the rider, because I like the rider model better.
I don't blame you. It's quite
Plus,
cool looking.
mine's painted blue, so
Like
he's super
Babe.
cool. Yep,
Babe the Blue Ox.
that's
Paul
exactly.
Bunyan. So Kawano Rojin, 14 points of
Awesome.
Yeah,
meat.
he's way too undercosted.
That's a whole different discussion.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll have a Bungles After Dark of who we feel are our most broken models out there. And this one, one of them, not bad. Being able to take two, but that's a whole different discussion. Let's don't get off track.
Right.
Two of them is 1 point more than Black Eagle.
Exactly. So, which is 4 activations. Anyhow, 3 dice in combat, 4 speed, but he's got 2 melee strength, brutal 1, sharp. That's all right. I prefer Pierce, but sharp is also not bad. Bravery, cavalry 2 movement, huge. Charging bonus, fear 6. If I had a giant oxen bearing down on me, I wouldn't be happy too. Immovable, steadfast, tireless, tough 1. That's just a bad thing. And then he has, so that's, I'm just showing you this because I'm going to show go ahead, Cody. You tell about its pluses and minuses why I had in the list, and I'm going to show the back of the card because I think that's more important than the front in this case.
Yeah, the back is really the main part. So I mean, with him, with the cavalry move and whatnot, he just barrels down the board. He can also get idle flips and whatnot very early on. The immovable makes it so he just camps out in a zone and he literally takes up the entire zone. So there's really not a whole lot of people can do. They can't
with a
push him out.
base.
They can only shoot him.
And there wasn't that much shooting, and if there's some kind of terrain, which you had terrain in there, you could give him cover. So
right. Yeah, with him, he gives a friendly villager within 6 inches a virtue token, so that basically went on Taiki every single turn.
Okay.
And if I didn't put it on him, I gave it to the bull just so he could, get last stand or whatever. He also gives a friendly villager model an extra key in the starting phase, so Taiki was getting 2 key every turn instead of his normal 1.
Okay.
And then he gets a luck token, and that really came in handy because I have terrible dice.
Yes, you've learned from playing Silver Moon often against Silver Moon often that luck is a thing, and it should be in your favor.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you used it. I mean, again, all the things that he does, and those virtue tokens and the virtue abilities that the bull gives are huge. I mean, getting tireless, last stand, fearless, and tough 1. Any one of those, if they just had one of those, it would be solid. But being able to give out all four, not to one model, but having the option to choose just makes it a huge, huge benefit to any list. Now, granted, it is to friendly villagers, but still, it's
that's what makes villagers so rough, though. Now, I mean,
yeah, I never
got that durability.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I ever actually used any of his virtue abilities except for last stand on himself in one of the games.
That's right, because he's a villager.
Yeah.
Which I think is a little weird.
That's the other kicker, too, is, I mean, he's a villager, too, and I'm like, okay, he's got a dude on top of him, but let's be honest here. The bull is the one giving all of the benefit, not the dude. Dude on top is just there for show.
And then you were powering him.
My MVP right here.
This was your a 10-point MVP. All right, so we have Taiki, a villager monk. What makes this pretty plain-looking dude so good?
His instant key feat, Simian Trickery.
I'm going to put that card up. Keep talking.
Yeah, he's a pretty average fighter. I mean, you can't go wrong with 3 melee dice, 2 key boost, I believe.
That's huge right there. When I saw that, I thought he was a 3/3.
Yeah, he's just all around pretty good. Plus, he allows traps to be brought into a mostly monk list. But the Simian Trickery, being able to teleport to where his pet monkey Nisaru is.
Yeah.
I never actually used it for combat, doing like the trick where you run in, throw everything and attack, and then jump out before the damage rolls and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I actually used it more to bring Nisaru into combat, or bring, if Nisaru went in, since it's an instant, bringing Taiki into combat just to get the outnumber and then beat people down that way, because the monkey is actually pretty gross in combat.
What about grabbing objectives? Because I would think that would be like a huge one.
Well,
I don't
we'll
know
talk
what the
about
bamboo
that
does.
in the games.
Okay.
We'll talk about that. All right. So that was Taiki, which now brings us then to Nisaru. Where are you?
It should actually be Ioko, technically, if you want to go rice-wise, but...
Oh, you're right. I skipped. Yep. Oh, my favorite child.
Yeah. So...
Oh, who dies first in every game? The children.
This is certainly
Not
this
when
is all
she
true.
sits all the way in the back.
I know.
Tell that to Tembatsu or Black Eagle when he's just like, boom.
Flank in, little girl, die first, moving on.
Yeah. So she was in the list for all of her virtue token shenanigans.
Yeah, so this is her front. She's not a great fighter. She ain't gonna
the
do
front of
nothing.
the card's worthless, basically.
So let's take a peek at her.
Although, if you look on the front, the move stat of 4 with a 2 key boost, I will definitely go into that in the first game.
Okay. Here's the back of her.
So, because the bull was handing out a virtue token to Taiki every turn, I used the void ability on Ioko's card, giving Taiki 2 key tokens. So basically, he was getting 4 key every single turn. And Ioko wasn't expending anything of hers, so she was able to like give Yuki the extra key, or Riku the extra key, because that's basically all I used it for. I never, just looking, I did use the water to heal 2 wounds a couple times on the bull. I actually got the bull from having 1 hitbox left to being completely healed in one of my games, so that was pretty cool. But otherwise, she was just there to throw out key tokens and kind of keep everybody fully loaded so they could boost their stuff up.
Yeah, so she gives virtue tokens along with by you doing the blessing of the kami, and then the bull gives a virtue token to a villager, and then just you're giving key tokens out because of void. Yeah, that's solid. And then again with the bull having that, and then this, so anybody who uses a virtue token can use the bull's Kawa no Rojin's virtue abilities, or you could use hers. There's such a huge selection of it. It's kind of gross.
Yeah,
to be honest.
I think it took a lot of my opponents by surprise. I guess it only took 2 of my opponents by surprise. The other 2 played Temple, and
they both had her also.
Not my final round opponent, but I know he's played her in the past because we play against them
every
from
once
time
in a
to
while.
time. So
yeah. All right, so that was that. Now we'll go down to Nisaru. Now where's Nisaru? There he is.
Monkey Man.
Love
this little guy.
All right, there he is.
6 rice, 2 melee, 5 move, key stat 2/0. So he was able to get into like some of the big scaries versus Taiki, and then bringing Taiki in so he didn't have to worry about the fear check, because the Simian trickery, he has to be placed into base to base. And then he gets the coordinated attack with Taiki, dodge 2, plus he scouts,
scout with 4 inches. That's huge. Yeah,
he's basically starting 5 inches up the board because within. And
increase the cost of key feats and special attacks and defenses by 1. That's fun.
Yep, completely forgot about that. Tournament.
Dude, that's like he's basically mobile old Zoe, but like better.
Kinda. Well, yeah, except no, not. I wouldn't say better in that he's doing it to defenses and attacks, but old Zoe gets the key, so he gets the tax. That's old Zoe still is better. I mean, I'll be honest.
Yeah, completely forgot about all that. And
my goodness,
dude,
the panic though, making it so models within 3 inches couldn't be surprised was a lifesaver.
Oh yeah. Koji's pack has the same thing, doesn't it?
His is only 1 inch, which he should
Okay.
be the next card. So
Yep. So we'll take a peek at that. Koji's pack. We'll look at the front first.
yeah, the back doesn't have anything except models within 1 inch can't be surprised or something like that.
So yeah, that'll be it.
And
So
they
there's
gain 6 cents.
and you only had one of Koji's packs. So you had A.
Right. I only took one because I didn't need any more. Plus, I didn't want to mess with the group activation because I was basically using Koji's pack as a pass token.
Mm-hmm.
Also, he was there in case of ranged heavy lists. He was going to be the Kawa no Rojin's best friend and take arrows. And he also he's my favorite in zone missions for just camping in the back and, getting me points that way.
Yeah, it's an extra model that could screw up whether someone controls his own or not. And it's
Well, I'll talk about it in one of the games.
Talk about it in one of the games. All right, we're almost to the end here. So that was the. So I'm going to pull in one of your sideboard dude choices before we get into all of your events and stuff like that, to which you had quite a few. So the mighty Suchiro. Now there's new Suchiro light and crispy, because he's made by a monk mother's son. I don't know. Anyway, go for it.
Where you were going with that one?
It was the Sunchero. It was the Rancheros or Sunchero. It was some commercial. It's a jingle. It's in my head.
I thought you were trying to make him like your own version of Kamen Rider or something at that point.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, so Suchiro.
21 rice, easy math.
Easy math.
Didn't have to think about it. It's just, okay, swap these two. Didn't have to mess with anything. 4 melee, which is huge. Big downside to him is he is only a 4 move and does not have the ability to boost it.
Mm-hmm.
So other than that, though, bravery, immovable, indomitable, kata, range defense, resistance, tough. Like, he's got it all for being 21 rice.
Oh, and then throw him a virtue token, and then he has access to a whole boatload of crap. Yeah.
Well, and his key feats are just disgusting too.
He got a virtue token first, basically every game, so he could put up Resolve of Rock, which gives him Construct and Tireless, and he just sat in the middle of the board eating activations, and then basically him and the Kawa were like, okay, we're still sitting on 2 activation tokens. Now we can go, beat the crap out of something.
Yeah, come at me, bro. Come at me. I get you. All right. Well, so those were your figures. So now I'm going to go back to your main list. So he was on your sideboard, and basically, like you said, he was an easy flip flop for Kosuke.
Yep.
So we now go to your events, that's an event.
Yeah, it should be Moment of Enlightenment, which I don't know if you want to pull them up.
I'm just going to pull them up by the order you have them on your list here. So the first one would be an event, and it would be
Rope Trap.
Rope Trap, everybody's favorite.
Yep. So I took 2 of these because Taiki's in the list. I guess technically with the Kawa I could take them anyway. So either way, but I took 2, 1 race each, and people have to make a size challenge 6, and if they don't, they get an immobilized marker. So
if they make a move, if they declare a move action, then they have to make that size challenge, and if they're not, they're immobilized, and that's done, and the action is considered resolved. So chuck that out of the way.
Yeah, for 2 rice for 2 attempts to keep someone out of a zone, or whatever, surprising a model if I didn't have a monkey by them, just attempting it. I never had to spam it more than, I only had 2, so I couldn't really spam it anyways, but I don't think I ever had to use both on one model.
Limited spammability is what we'll call it. All right, so Rope Trap, that's pretty self-explanatory what that does. So then the next item you have would be a piece of terrain.
The good old Gorinto.
Okay, we'll go to terrain, the Gorinto. So what was Gorinto there for? It looks like he's just given key out.
1 key to a model within 6 inches. So, idle mission, that key went to Yuki, so that way she could Vitality turn 1. If Suchiro was in the list, it went to him, so he could Construct early if he needed to. Otherwise, it would go to Ayoko. and just so that way she could build up her ki and pop 2 virtue tokens in a turn.
Okay,
I
and then
only did that once or twice, but it was usually just to get someone, like with Riku putting up Wall of Water to keep him at like 4 ki every turn, or things like that.
plus you could put it in places, so it's got to be deployed within 6 inches of center line, and you could still use it to block stuff up. So key and annoyance for
Yep.
potentially
And
an annoyance.
cover.
And cover. Yeah, cover. It's huge. All right. Then last but not least on your primary list, because you have a whole, it looks like pretty much your whole sideboard was just a bunch of
just
stuff.
The sideboard we really don't have to go. I mean, the only one we really have to go over on the sideboard is Sun Goddess, which we kind of already did. I just kind of put stuff there to
just in
eat up
case.
points.
Just in case he came against me. It's like, here are all my precautions to stop Jason if I ever come against him in this tournament.
Then moment of enlightenment. Hey, here's 4 additional key tokens for non-soulless models. Have fun.
Is there a soulless model in Temple? I figured they all had souls. Or are they talking about like the constructs?
They're talking mostly about the constructs.
Okay.
So, and the Kami, that way you can't heal them back up.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
God.
But yeah, so that was in there just in play testing. I was key starved a lot, even with Ioko giving everybody 2 extra key every turn. You're boosting a lot and whatnot. So just having that ability to get 4 extra key, make sure that Yuki has enough to do maybe vitality and lightning reflexes to gain combo attack as well.
Yeah, and the fact that it's play during key generation. Okay, so you had to play it at the beginning of the round immediately. I was thrown because I wasn't. I decided not to read the first sentence. Just went immediately distribute 4. I'm like, oh shit, I could use this whenever. Sweet, that's an instant 4. Bam. No,
I would hope that it would cost more if that was the case.
Yeah, I would hope so too. But no, still, 4 is nothing to sneeze at. Yeah.
So this is the one that I swapped out for the Sun Goddess Shrine in game 1, and then in game 3 I actually left this one in, and I swapped out the rope traps for a rice bale barricade, and I don't even remember what else. The only other main card that I had in the sideboard, the 2 which I never needed, was balance in case I came up against like Prefixture or Jason Silvermoon, and then the other one was the Blessing of Life or whatever it is for soulless models to kind of prevent them from doing anything fun.
Yeah, so
Celebration of Life.
Yeah, Celebration
of Life.
So to kind of round out what Cody had in his warband list, so as he said, in his sideboard he had Tsuchiro, and then he had Balance for 1, Celebration of Life for 1, Hiroto's New Plan for 1, Rice Bale Barricades for 1, Sun Goddess Shrine for 2, and Spiritual Harmony for 1, which came out to a grand total of
28
points. So he actually had 2 points to spare.
I couldn't think of anything else. I didn't need
more monkeys. Monkeys.
Well, I don't think you can.
Oh no, you can't. Because you have to take the card. So
yeah.
So you'd have to be able to. Yeah. So no, never mind. Ignore me. This is why I have Brian as my rules guru. And I didn't play because I would have just screwed it up, and then everybody would be like, "Oh, he's a cheater," and I'd be like, "No, I'm just dumb." So
aren't we all?
Apparently not you. But so that brings us. So that's your list. Which again, it seemed to be Order for Battle gives you the flexibility, but honestly, your main list, minus the swapping between Kosuke and Tsuchiro, and maybe one card here or there. Your main list was almost an all-comers list. Do you think you could have just, had you not played, if you didn't play Ordered for Battle and just took everything in your main list and nothing on your sideboard, do you still think you would have done well?
I think if I would have brought Tsuchiro in place of Kosuke, and ran that, I would have probably still had the same outcome.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd see that. Because Tsuchiro's
about the only difference between the two. I mean, aside from that, Tsuchiro could take a beating. Kosuke is more of a beater rather than taking a beating, and he's just faster. And if Kosuke's speed didn't play a significant role in what you were doing, then
Tsuchiro's staying power.
Tsuchiro's staying power trumps it every time.
Yeah, and I could have like overcome some of the light-footed with Ioko. She can give people +1 and light-footed or +1 in Cloudwalk, whatever her air kami void
Oh,
token thing does.
yeah.
Okay.
So I could have essentially done the same thing with Suchiro. I just wanted to make sure that I had the ability to, counter a good turn from Silver Moon or from a Yuri list and stuff like that, and
Okay.
didn't
Okay.
have to
No,
play against any of them. So
that's the
Lucky
important
you.
thing. Yeah. All right. So that brings us to your
Tournament
tournament
experience.
experience, the experience, imagination.
No, like this, like, thank you.
Doodle-doo, doodle-doo, doodle-doo. So round one, a bright-eyed and bushy-tailed Cody
oh yeah,
I don't know what
shows
we're
up,
talking about now.
and that was, I think, round one. I was a supreme jerk of a judge, and I think I had you guys do your VIM as mission one, or was it?
yes.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
mission one because I got to the end. I'm like, wait, isn't there supposed to be a Vim? And I was like, oh wait, that was round one. We already got that out of the
Well,
way.
because the last time we played in that kind of a tournament, the VIM usually is like at the end. But I'll be honest with you, judge tip: when you want to minimize and you're setting the tables, or even if you just have, even if you're going to let the players do their terrain, but you still have to screw around with the objectives to make sure they're all measured right, you do the same. We had the VIM, which was an centerline idols, and then we had Osatsu, which was centerline idols with 8-inch zones. So you know what you do? You do all the stuff with idols as much as you can with as minimal amount of moving them around as possible, and then just shift around your train as needed to fit the zones and so on. So it was called lazy judge syndrome. That's why you got it.
Lazy judge had to do like what, 13 tables?
I didn't want it for those new players who are coming in. I didn't want to all of a sudden ambush them. Osatsu is one of my favorite missions. Sorry, I'm preempting what Cody's experience was. Osatsu is one of my favorite missions, but it is very complicated, and new players will get taken aback by it. So to ease them in, I said, hey, let's do a Vim, and it's going to be the same thing, idols across the middle, but when they get Osatsu, idols across the middle, but with a catch. So anyway, VIM first round, and you were facing Jung. That's right. So what was that like for your list?
Well, like I said earlier, that my opponent had the hottest ice that I faced all day, so that was rough. Mm-hmm. 5s and 6s just across the board. I was able to turn all 3 idols turn 1, really put the pressure on him. He was not expecting it, and then he had to overload on the left with Ryujin and all of those models because the Sun Goddess was in between the middle zone and the right zone.
Okay.
And then we kind of went back and forth with combat. I got him down to only having Ryujin and Jung Minato, the guy with the anchor.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I thought I killed his VIM, but I wasn't sure. I was like, it's got to be, one of those two. Mm-hmm. And I ran Riku all the way to the board edge. Well, he started sprinting Jung Minato, and I'm like, oh, shoot. I'm only going to get a 2-0. So I had Ioko with 1 activation left, but she was sitting on 8 key. So she just boosted her move all the way up and walked and was able to get him in her zone of control. So he couldn't make the sprint directly at the board edge. He would have to go out directly away or whatever because he's in her zone of control. He wouldn't have been
Does she have evasive?
Akio? No, she's the little girl. Little girl ran interference on the pirate.
Oh,
he was basically tripping him. He was tripping her up with her.
Right, but he wouldn't have been able to get into his zone of control with her.
He stayed outside of the inch.
She was in his back arc.
Oh, okay. That answers that question. So he didn't have his zone of control there. Problem solved. But he was in hers. He would have to move directly away from her and then continue his move.
Right, and I angled her so that way he couldn't, to get directly away, he would
have to walk instead of run.
If he wanted to run or whatever, he wouldn't have made it to the board edge. But even a walk still would put him not as far as Riku, because Riku was literally off the board basically at that point.
He was right on the edge of the
Yeah.
Okay.
So I got a 3-0 for that.
3-0 for that. All right. So then next round, and apparently I gave Andy Palmer the list that actually has your opponents and everything else on it.
Well, round 2.
Round two.
I've got
Round-
the spreadsheet if we want to look at it.
Well, I know who
exactly
round
my
2
opponent
is. Round 2 is
So-
Osatsu.
Round 2 Osatsu, I was playing against a Temple Righteous Warriors list, and to not use names,
He was a former Grand Master.
yeah, and he pilots his list extremely well. So this game is where Taiki and Nisaru really shined. We both moved models. We were kind of playing that chess match of who was going to commit to the idol first, and I knew I was going to, but I just waited until the last basically 4 activations, moved Nisaru, teleported Taiki to him, moved Nisaru again, pretty much base to base with the middle idol, teleported Taiki with Simian Trickery. He has 2 activations left, complex action, turn 1, turn the idol. So that made my opponent kind of go, crap. And then turn 2, the Kawa-no-Rojin tied up Master Po for a while. Master Enos did Master Enos things with Taiki and Nisaru, and I used a rope trap on Kenko, and Kenko was immobilized for 2 turns. He kept trying to roll to break the immobilized and could never get out of it.
Oh.
And then basically the game ended once the bull killed Master Po and Master Enos in the same turn. He killed Po first, walked over, rolled his 3 dice all in attack. Master Enos, the model's defense was, I think, 3 1s or something like that. So he was on like chart 9 or 10, and then just kind of after that it was pretty smooth sailing, with the only models left being Kira and Kenko, and I think I had only lost Nisaru at that point. Or, no, we both killed Ioko's, so I lost her too.
All right. So, but you know, you were able to contain what he had left and just run out the whole thing there. Okay,
Got
so
3-0 again.
That's something, and I remember I was talking with Art and a few others, and you know, while again there was some dice play on your part that came in at just the right time. He did, you know, your opponent did say he put you on the ropes. I mean, you dictated what was going to happen and it caused him to stretch.
Yeah,
and that led to things, you know, that potential of that happening. So,
and I did forget. I think it was turn 3. It might have been turn 4, the scoring turn. He used Master Enos to complex action, flip the idol back to neutral, and so I was like, you know, what do I do? And luckily, once I killed Master Po, Yuki had the ability to walk up to the idol, vitality, complex action, turn it back in my favor.
Yep. So that's 2 wins and 18 points right there. So you know, you were more than halfway to where you're at, which then takes us
at that point.
I would figure, you know, you're playing a Grand Master is going to be kind of. I think that was I'll be honest with you. I know that was the round that both of you, I think, played a Grand Master.
Yeah. And we were playing right next to each other.
Yeah. So we'll get into Jason's experience probably in the next episode, because this one's getting a little long. But I know that was nerve-wracking for both of you. But all right.
I enjoyed mine. I was just like, I know what I'm going. I know I'm going to have a tough time against it. I didn't really remember until the guy's like, "Oh yeah, I made this model." I'm like, "Oh, cool, let's do this."
Yeah, there you go. You can't back down from one of those. So that's good.
Right.
He was a stealth Grandmaster, because, you know, 2nd edition. Who plays 2nd edition? So round 3. Who was your round 3?
So round 3, I played a Savage Wave player.
Was it an alpha or was it the Red Sun?
It was an alphas.
Okay.
I had a lot of misplays in this game. It was the 3 diagonal zones. Whoops.
It was Ryoto.
Ryoto, yes. So turn 1 got Tsuchiro and the bull in the middle zone. Was really scoring early, making sure I had that under control. and he had what's the Kenmono and Ushi, and he kept controlling Tsuchiro, so like that was just a pain. We just kind of had a massive fight in the middle, and it really was going back and forth. My misplay in that one was I had the Kawanorojin tying up Waku or Waka over just right above the middle zone, more towards his side, and I completely brain farted that he didn't have a zone of control at that point, so she could have just walked around and then ran and contested the far zone. And so I walked her in. Well, I failed 2 fear tests to walk her in, and then waited until the start of turn to do her 1-inch place, which I also forgot a lot throughout the games. But in the end, we ended up drawing 1-1, and it was a blessing because that one was probably my roughest game, mostly because he had really hot dice and I had mediocre. I knew I wouldn't be able to get through the Onis. And just like I said, I had a bunch of misplays.
I was going to say that's one of those where it's even if you're playing defensively, with Temple trying to take out big beefy Onis, that is not.
It's not easy. It's probably
not easy, especially because is that one where you flipped out Kosuke and had Tsuchiro in.
Yeah,
and Tsuchiro could hit, but you mainly had him as something that's just in. It was basically, immovable object meeting irresistible force, with the Onis being irresistible and you being immovable, but. Neither of you were going to take each other out. Whatever. Immovable, unstoppable.
If that's what the Onis want to do, Sochiro's kind of cute, but I don't know if that's how it works.
Again, Onis don't get the rerolls. They have a decent amount of dice, and if they hit you, they're going to hit like a ton of bricks. But if I play defensively with Temple, Kata negates the fact that I can't reroll, because all my dice count for something. So even if I roll piss poor and roll 3 on my I don't roll 3 1s, I still get a 3 defense. Whereas if Savage Wave rolls 3 1s, they have nothing. So and neither side's re-rolling anything. So
that opponent used Rashka, the guy with the big Torii gate, and he utilized his split attack perfectly.
Oh wow! Okay, see, that's something we're not used to too.
I completely forgot about split attack, and he was using it. He killed like Nisaru and someone else, I don't remember. Then used it again to kill Taiki and wound Tsuchiro, and it was just brutal. But I'm glad I got the 1-1. If I wouldn't have misplayed, who knows? I could have maybe gotten a 2-0, but in the end, it worked out.
Okay. Well, there you go. So again, but that's still, I know at that point you were still at the top of the scoring, because again, this was no one at the end of round 2. I think you were one of the only people who were 3-0, or perhaps you were taking the other 3-0 the other person who had the only we'll say everybody was undefeated or had all wins, but you were the only 2 that had perfect 3-0 3-0 records. Just kind of racking my brain on it. So that led you to round 4. And then round 4 was that was
against a Bastions of the Mountain Temple list.
Yes, it was. So Temple versus Temple and Bastions versus your list. So what was that experience like? And that mission was depletion. Here, I'm going to put that up here in just a second.
So again, my list is designed for early scenario pressure. I waited until the very end of turn 1 to start praying at the middle idols, because I didn't want to, show my hand too early in the match. My opponent used a Rice Bale Barricade and his Garinto to actually block the middle idol on the right side.
Okay.
So that was actually kind of rough because we had a giant forest in the middle, and again, my list doesn't have a lot of light-footed. So he was moving his guys through, and I kind of had to maneuver around it and avoid the 2 bowls that he had.
Mm-hmm.
He did have a Koji's pack on the right side that soaked up 5 activations from Yuki and then 2 from my Koji's pack. So that was brutal because she
We
couldn't.
had a monkey knife fight going on. All right.
Yeah, exactly. Finally, I was able to kill his Koji's pack on that side of the board. Yuki was able to get free, run around to the back idol, and start praying there. And then the other idol was just a cluster between. I think we ended up having like 6 or 7 models on that other back idol. So it was just ridiculous. And then
Yeah, I remember coming over and kind of keeping an eye on it. Because I was keeping an eye on that one. I was keeping an eye on the tables below you because the points at that point were really tight. You and Jason were separated by 2 points, I think, going into that round. And then
that's not,
yeah, or maybe it was 3.
It
It
should
was
have been like 3 points because
Yeah.
I think my third round I finished 2-1.
Yeah, it was close. And again, then the person underneath Jason was not that far off either. So,
yeah, and
it was all up for grabs on those top 2 tables between the top 4 players. It was anybody's to take at that point.
I had no idea. I knew that I was at the top table. I was like, I don't know if I win this with a 1-0. And things kind of got bogged down just because we both had tireless models. We both had a lot of models.
Yes.
We both had traps, So it was a little rough. But we ended up getting into turn 4 and finishing. I think we finished turn 4. I don't remember, but
No, we called it. I mean, you got
it
through
might have
most of
been
turn
mid.
4.
Yeah.
And that way you were able to score because you were able to get to 2 scoring rounds. I know that.
Yeah, and at that point too, he
didn't have much left.
He had 2 bulls left, and
Not much left with 2 bowls.
I think he might have only had 2 bulls left, and maybe a kami. I don't remember. His dice shut off. Mine heated up in that game.
Yeah.
I had a lot of really high damage rolls, and it worked out obviously for the better for me. But it was definitely a tough matchup. He gave me a good fight. I think one of the benefits to playing that list in the final round too was that I had just won our local tournament with a very similar list. I played a Bastions of the Mountain list and
Yes.
kind of knew all the ins and outs of that list and what to expect. And he didn't take any traps. He was just pulling them in with the theme.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I remember seeing that and
That's
wondering.
rough.
Yeah, he didn't take any traps, and he was only pulling it. Yeah, he was only taking whatever he didn't have, or maybe he had 1 trap that he had. I thought it was odd.
Yeah, he was mostly trying to use the snare from Hisoka, which I mean, I
Yes.
appreciate the fact that it wasn't snaring plus 9 traps or whatever,
But
because
that's
that
still a
would
lot of
really
there's
suck.
still a lot of snares
Yeah,
coming out. I won't
yeah.
lie.
Luckily, with the luck tokens from my bull, I was able to re-roll that 1 die that I needed, and like I said, I had hot dice, so I think in the end I only failed 1 test, and I think it was a punji pit, so
Okay.
didn't really care all that much. I mean, it still stopped the activation and I took damage from it, but it wasn't like getting the immobilized and all that fun stuff.
Yes. Okay. And then, so 2-0 victory, and that salted it for you because, Jason, you went 2-1 on your last round, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine
So
were 2-1.
yeah, 2-1. So, and we'll go in. Like I said, we're running a little long here, but it was good to kind of talk through everything, hear about the experience. We'll talk about Jason's stuff probably in an episode next week. If we do this, when we do this again, we'll try to do this a little more often. So if you were to do it all over again, Cody, what would you have done differently?
Drink more sake.
And that probably would have helped. had my special beverage every game. Just kind of take the edge off. Really, I think playing just models that you like. I mean, that's why Kosuke was in the list. That's why the Kawa Norojin was in the list. I mean, he's broken at his rice value, but
Still a fun looking model. I mean, the rule of cool still applies to it. He's a big oxen with a dude riding on his back. I mean,
yeah,
come on.
and I just love Taiki and Nisaru, and it helps that they kind of have all the shenanigans, and it really just fits into that my aggressive, objective grab. And I mean, really, as far as doing anything different, just remembering your rules, because obviously I forgot Nisaru's main rule that would have definitely helped in a lot of the fights.
Yeah.
Just, there was that, and just remembering that when models are engaged, they don't have a zone of control.
That is
Another
correct.
really
Yes,
big
when they're
one.
engaged, that's a huge one. But there's a lot of rules to remember. So if those are things you do differently, what's the one thing that worked for you well?
Leaving my favorite dice until the last game.
Gotcha. All right. Yep.
Yeah, I've got my favorite Canadian dice. I'm
I
not
hate those
Canadian,
dice. I
but
hate those dice.
I put them in timeout and didn't use them until the final game, and they just really heated up. I still had pretty average dice rolls at the beginning, but
Mhm.
towards the end of that match, like Koji's pack went in and killed
Kill the bull.
I think it's
No, I'm kidding.
Hintaru, the villager with the bird, the named one.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
He one-shotted him with one dice, so that was pretty cool.
That is very cool. Yeah, somebody was getting a little feeling their oats on that one if they're going to let a monkey come in.
Yeah. Well, it helped because he was exhausted. He had run,
Oh.
and then
Oh, okay. That's a little bit more
it was
better
also surprised. I don't remember if it was surprised or not with Koji's abilities, but either way,
Yeah.
than you
you
had
know,
something
he's
else going into it.
yeah.
Had more than one die.
It was basically one die for one die. My Koji's pack died for it because he had popped the last stand benefit, but
Mm.
it
So
was worth it.
the two monkeys killed themselves, or Hitaru
Yeah.
killed himself and the monkey died.
Yep.
Very sad, very sad.
But yeah, it was a
Alright.
good time. Had a
Mhm.
blast. I'm glad that it turned out the way it did, and I really enjoyed all my games, and I don't think I would have done anything different.
Well, good. Okay. So that's good. And the important thing is given that this type of tournament could be a very high
Stressful.
stress. Yeah, very high stress. I mean, me and Jason, when we were back in our War Machine days, we had a friend that we played in the 2-man tournament at Adepticon, and friends of ours played us in the first round. And I remember that guy. He was a good friend of ours, and he was a wreck because they were on the top table,
Oh yeah.
and he was just a wreck because and his partner, who's used to it. His partner used to play Magic
Competitive Magic.
competitively and was on the circuit and all the rest of this stuff. So it was like his element, but it was not his partner's element. And you could see that it was just eating him up. And it does that to some people. And then they lose their cool, they lose their train of thought. And at the end of a long day, I mean, we had 4 rounds. We couldn't break for dinner, although we did have some games ended quick where we had 20 minutes in between, which kind of bled to 25. No, actually we held to 20 pretty good. But some people finished their match. They had 50, 60 minutes in between matches where they could run and get something to eat, at least in the con and whatnot. They weren't able to leave because God forbid you lose your parking space. Adepticon parking. I can't wait for the parking garage to be put in. Please, that's going to be great. Although I have to say, our parking experience. So side note, our parking experience was not bad, but that's because we know the sneaky way to get in, and I'm not going to tell anybody what that is.
Well, honestly, even day one when I had to park out in the boonies, like it
Yeah, that
really
wasn't
wasn't
bad.
that bad.
No.
Wasn't
I've
as bad as
definitely
I thought
parked
it was gonna
in
be.
much worse spots around the con, and it wasn't
Yeah.
bad, and it was rainy and crappy out, and I wear shorts year round, so
Yeah,
I was
it's one of
able to
those.
brave it.
So
I mean,
yeah,
it wasn't that bad for parking. I mean, you weren't seeing people take interesting liberties of how can I parallel park against this curb.
Yeah.
yeah, that's for sure. All right, so two final questions. I'm going to give you, Cody. The first one:
Uh-oh.
next year's Grand Masters, because now you got to defend the Grand Masters. What are you thinking of playing?
Oh, I'm retiring, so I can never
No,
lose
no,
as
no,
a
no, 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 no.
Grandmaster.
That's not a choice. It's not a choice. No.
Well, right now on my painting table, I have my list called Thunder and Lightning, which
Okay.
we were talking about at the con.
Yes, we were.
It's a prefecture of Ryu list, and yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm going to
Okay.
try that. And then the other thing I actually have, because I saw how much fun all of our Savage Wave players were having,
There you go.
is Savage Wave list. I don't know if I'm going to necessarily bring that to Grandmasters. Not that it can't do well, because they were kind of placed scattered all throughout. But I definitely want to play them a little bit more and just mess around.
Well, yeah. I mean, an Alpha Savage Wave did take third place, so they did not do poorly.
Yeah.
All right. So that's so Prefecture, Savage Wave. Those are okay. That's good. We'll leave it at that. That's good to know that's what you're leaning towards, so we could all prep for it.
You're just trying to get me to commit.
I'm trying to commit so I could start tailoring my Edo list.
What are you talking about? He'll change it the day of the tournament.
I know he's going to change it. He's going to change it.
It took us how many times
else.
to tell him to be like, Cody, just stick with this list. No, I could do this and that. I could play this faction.
He's going to play a Ronin Void Monk list that has the cow in it. Kawa.
He's not a Ronin. How can you do that?
I'm just going to show up with Temple. A couple 40k figs, an AOS figure in my list,
Something from Infinity. It's all good.
Yeah. Necromunda first edition figure.
Ooh, there you go. I got some of those.
Isn't this a fantasy agnostic tournament?
It's whatever. Some Arena Rex guys. It's all good. All right. So second question. This is the one that probably everybody wants a sneak peek on. What's your ideas for the figure that you're going to be making?
Ooh, so...
Don't have to give it away, but we know it's going to be something for Temple.
Definitely Temple. I'm definitely looking at a animal figure.
Okay.
Right now in my head, I'm thinking of I think it's Master. Is it Shifu, the evil tiger from
Kung Fu Panda?
Kung Fu Panda.
That was Master Shifu.
No, Shifu's the little rat guy.
Apparently, you didn't do the research like we told you, Cody. You watched all the Kung Fu Panda movies for this.
I know which one you're talking about. The giant snow leopard from the first one.
Yeah.
Kai Pao or something like that.
Oh, hang on. Now you know what? Now I'm gonna have to go and we're at computers, people. Oh, I can't do it. Otherwise, I'll lose my. We'll lose the taping here. So anyway, so you're looking at doing some kind of animal monk.
Yes.
Potentially.
I've got a couple other ideas. I don't know.
Tylone. That's who it was.
Tylone. Okay.
Yeah, I haven't quite decided what I want to do with it yet. I haven't reached out to Master Enos. I kind of want to
let them recover
my figure
from their
and
Corona too. So
from their Adepticon special.
Yes.
He was going to send me some stuff too.
The whole process and whatnot.
He also was talking to me about like them trying to come up with like a drunken fighting style. It's nothing set in stone, but I was like, I've always wanted to make a drunken monk, so I think that would be kind of cool too. Just mechanically, I don't know if it'd work, and I kind of like the ideas with the tiger.
Tell them you want a resin. Just tell them that you want you in the game with a beer mug.
Yeah,
that's not a bad thing.
I just want myself as a resin model or a metal model with a beer mug, and that's my Temple figure.
I mean, it would probably be a villager then.
All right, so
beer trap.
beer trap. That could be one of them. Yeah, beer trap. That's his special thing. All right. Well, you know what? I thank you, Jason. Thank you for co-hosting here and being here and giving us your insights on Adepticon. And thank you, Cody, for sharing your lists, your experience, and everything else that went with Adepticon. Thank you guys for listening. Our first podcast, our first YouTube where we're not playing a game, and I only sang a couple songs this time, so it's really not too bad. Again, this is something we're going to try to do on a regular basis because we don't have to be at somebody's house to do it. You could see behind me, Man Cave Studio is just barren except for me, although there is the tentacle in the corner here. this finger, one of these fingers.
You're right.
Is
Right.
play- that was the pick of the con for me.
That's true. They're only $20 a pop, so
It's so worth it. Anyway, so hope you all enjoyed this. Hope you got something useful out of this. If you're thinking about going to a con and whatnot and have questions about what it's like and what to experience and so on, shoot us a line, let us know about it. Definitely throw us some comments. If you enjoyed this format, let us know. If there's something you'd like to hear us talk about, our personal hygiene habits, what animes we like, Bushido tactics, which for me, it's just, I throw dice. That's why I play these straightforward lists. Let us know what those are too. Anything that will help us get more stuff out there that you guys can enjoy, we'll appreciate it. And if you do appreciate it, give us a like, subscribe, and as we always like to say, have a great day or evening, wherever you may be.